Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pal's Go to the Movies. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hello, everyone.
And today we're going to review The Nutcracker and the Four Realms. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you have been warned. A young girl is transported into a magical world of gingerbread soldiers and an army of mice. This is the fairly new 2018 version, not to be confused with the previous one. Where should we start? Well, let's start with the cast. So this movie, we had a fairly interesting cast member list. First of all, we had Morgan Freeman, which is always a good thing to have. We had Helen Mirren as Mother Ginger, Keira Knightley as Sugar Plum, and we also had the young Mackenzie Foy playing Clara. This is a retelling of the Nutcracker and the Mouse King, which we know has been done before, but this is the newest version of Disney. Before anything, I'm going to throw it to Touly and see what Touly thought about this movie.
I have come to terms that when it comes to movies like this, I feel like I need to come up with a list. I feel that overall this movie was not very memorable. In order for me to kind of justify that review or my description of the film, I needed to come up with a list so that I could actually pinpoint some of the ideas before they escape my mind completely. Yeah, the film was not memorable because, it's tied to a lot of things. It's not memorable because I felt the film was boring. And the reason why it was boring was because it was very slow-paced, in my opinion. The lack of background for our lead heroine, played by Mackenzie Foy, I believe her name was Clara, the name of the character that is. I felt like the background they gave for her didn't incite me to want to care about the character as much. They gave us the sense that she was having a difficult time coping with the loss of her mother. And so it was pretty much from that I felt that kind of drove the character to do what she did. She wanted to feel more connected with her mother despite her not being there anymore. But that to me didn't do enough for me to get behind this character. And some of the stuff that she did, it wasn't consistent with who she was being depicted early on. For example, when she was helping her godfather fix the apparatus or to get it to work, she was able to do it so easily. And I thought to myself, well, this is her godfather who was supposed to be very scientifically savvy. And yet he was able to do it, but he couldn't. But then when it came down to later down the road when it was revealed that Clara's mother had already informed her in some capacity that she had the answer inside of her all this time, but she was having a difficult time actually coming up with the answer herself. For her being as clever as she is or whatever, that she couldn't get that point across instantly or whatever, it took her some time. It didn't match up with her character. Let alone, I want to call Clara, in this case, the Karate Kid as well, because, I don't know, her being able to do those sort of things, against her nemesis, I didn't feel it was really realistic of her. She was a scientist or whatever. For her to be able to throw out punches and kicks like that, I don't know, that didn't match who I had envisioned of Clara to be at the beginning. So boring. So that all comes back to the idea of being boring, things not making sense, the slow pacing, character consistencies, the lack of motivation that got me to be invested with the characters. And I feel like there was some sense of identity crisis with this film too, because when I saw the trailer for the first time, I thought this was more of a film for kids or whatever, but there were some very intense scenes in this movie as well when it came to the clowns and stuff. Whether or not you have a fear of clowns, I thought those were pretty intense. So I sort of didn't know who this film was targeted for. They released it around the time, it's going to be Christmas soon, so it sort of aligns with that, the season that is. But in terms of the age group, if I were to take a kid who thought that this film was just going to be visually appealing, which is one of the things I would say this film did an okay job at, it was visually appealing. Scenes that with the clowns or the toys being very menacing and whatever, it could actually get to these kids. So in terms of who this movie was made for, I would question that as well. But overall, I would say the film was very hollow. Again, just going back to what I said about the lack of reasoning and motivation behind these characters. I guess to just play a little devil's advocate at least, let me just mention a few positives that I took out of this film. You already mentioned some of them. We do get some very high-profile actors and actresses in this film, such as Morgan Freeman, Helen Mirren, Keira Knightley, and a very, very talented I would say, ballet dancer too. I believe her name is Misty Copeland. I think she was probably the one who was highlighted in this film. Like, she did a very elegant job at, doing the dance routines in this film. So that's a plus, I would say. What else? I know people are bringing up the cotton candy hair-like structure of Keira Knightley's character is Sugar Plum. That's something I've been hearing a lot of. I mean, there's like a different rendition of it, but you do hear Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker score throughout the film, so that does bring home the idea of the Nutcracker. And again, the film was just visually appealing. But yeah, all in all, I feel like if you saw the trailer, you probably got what you were hoping to get if you actually went to go see the movie. I think when I saw the trailer, I already knew that maybe this wasn't a film for me per se, or it was going to be a film that I felt wasn't going to live up to expectations. So all I can say is the film was not as bad as expected, but it was still pretty bad. I would probably recommend you either go watch the actual Nutcracker ballet play, or just go back and watch Fantasia and, watch that segment where you get that Nutcracker theme going with the fairies. I believe that's the scene. But yeah, that's how I feel about the film.
Okay, so let's start off by talking about Fantasia. That scene where the conductor starts, that was actually in the movie. They used it as a little bridge because it's Disney, of course. Let's go back to your pros, which are basically my same points. It's appealing to the eye. I enjoyed the visual effects. I enjoyed the actors, but not their performance. Some of them really lack. Another thing that I'm going to add is that, yes, the ballet, Misty Copeland, she did a fantastic job. And I especially stayed at the end for her rendition at the end when she did it at the ending credits. Amazing. That's the whole pro list that I have on this movie. The cons, it's a long list, and you probably summed it up best. Character development wasn't there. Story background, didn't see any of it. The clowns to me were the only thing that stood out of the movie in a negative and positive thing. Positive was that, it's something different that I'd never seen, but at the same time it was negative because I was like, what? This movie's for little kids. They're going to get scared of the clowns. And obviously we know that people have fear of clowns, and these clowns are not happy clowns. These are like really weird clowns. So in a sense, I was confused about it because I was like, is this a Tim Burton movie? We're scaring kids now? After that, I mean, like the whole thing, like you said, with Clara and her character, we knew about her mother. We never saw anything build up to it. We could have started before, like when she was still alive and then she died, and then do the same thing months later, like jump from here to there. Nothing. It was just, we dove into the movie. Clara lost her mother already, and she goes to Godfather. Godfather says, this machine is not working. I guess it was a test. That's how I saw it. It was a test that he was providing to see if she was ready for the adventure. But I'm like, if you knew about the adventure, why didn't you prepare her a little more? This is a girl who lost her mother, and she's never heard about this other realm except in that flashback that she had with her mother in front of the tree. This is really an obscure movie. To me, it didn't have the pacing. It didn't have the build-up, the character development especially, because I really didn't care much about Clara. To me, she was like a girl who's up in the attic, like she says, I'm always in the attic. I should probably come out to the real world or something. I'm like, if you would have shown us more of her background, and how she went from being a happy girl with her mom to just being secluded in the attic, I would believe it more. So this movie to me did not hold up to what people were talking about before it came out. And I guess my grade is going to represent that. So with that said, Touly, let's give it a final grade.
I would give the film a 2.5 out of 10. And just to add a little more on top of what we already said about the film, one thing that I wanted the film to focus a little bit more on was the character Philip, because I think he was portrayed as being the Nutcracker of the film, if I'm not mistaken. And for a movie to be called, of course, Nutcracker, and to have this character to kind of be depicted as such, not to have the amount of screen time or the amount of attention and care that I thought it should have deserved, I think they lost a chance there to kind of make the movie better in that retrospect. But yeah, 2.5 out of 10. I wouldn't recommend it. Go watch Narnia instead if you feel like it too. That's sort of like what I got from this film. Like, it totally got me this vibe of Narnia and stuff. And Narnia, to me at least, is a way more watchable film than this. But yep.
I agree with you. I also agree that they should have basically made Philip the Nutcracker the principal role. Instead of giving her that egg-shaped music box, why not give her a nutcracker so when she transports herself to the other world, she finds him there and he's alive. You know, she remembers him from like, oh, this is the toy that I played with when my mother gave me, or something along the line, because you, like you said, it's in the title, the Nutcracker. Philip, to me, seemed like they did have this bond. To me, it was almost like a romance bond that the Clara and him had, but it wasn't really developed. And plus, I believe that it's a Disney movie, so they wouldn't go that route. But if they did, why wouldn't they just have him fall in love with Clara and, you know, the power of love, like Disney says, it transcends power and whatever, you know, have him come to her rescue because of the, you know, the love. The grade for this movie is going to be a 3.5 to 4 out of 10. And I think the reason I gave it a little higher than Touly is because of the graphics. And I really enjoyed the graphics and visual effects that this movie had, especially when they were getting on the clock and going outside and they saw that the real world was kind of slower. To me, that it reminded me of the movie Toys with Robin Williams. And it's this kind of movie that wanted me to believe in the magic, but this movie didn't do that. So with that, this wraps up our review for the Nutcracker and the Four Realms. Please join us next time when we review Ralph Breaks the Internet. Social media is down in the description, and hit us up if you have any questions. And remember, keep watching movies.